Hey everyone, I hope I am audible. Hi, all of you. Okay, so yeah, I think I am audible. Okay. So, have you guys revised the concepts that we studied in the last session? Basics of HTML. Have you gone through the documentation of W3 schools regarding HTML? Okay, so yeah, give me a minute. Meanwhile, I'll just open the notes and then we'll continue further. Okay. Meanwhile, if you guys have any doubts from yesterday's session, you can ask. We'll wait for some 2 to 3 minutes and then we'll start the session. So, meanwhile, you guys can ask your doubts if you have any. I am open to address all of them. Uh, are there no doubts? So, shall we start today's session with the new topics that we have to study today? Can you guys reply in yes or no, if possible? Mhm. Okay. Okay, let me just share my screen. Okay, sure. We'll continue with the new part today. Let me just share my screen. Is my screen visible? Okay, it's visible. Mhm. Okay. So yeah, in the yesterday's class, we studied about what is HTML and what is its full form, how we can write HTML in the code, how we can create simple websites, how the function of request and response cycle of the website works, and a lot of things like that we studied in the yesterday's class. So I'll just quickly revise all the things that we studied yesterday. So starting with we studied that HTML is not a programming language, it's a markup language. Then we studied how, like, what is the title. We studied that there are two sections in the web browser, one is the head section and the another one is the body section. Then we studied different types of headings. Then we had the underline unordered list and the ordered list tags. and how we can like write different kind of list. Then we had the anchor tag, then the paragraph tag, image tag for storing the images, subscript and superscript for adding the like superscript and subscript. And then we studied about uh, the emit codes, the different types of like codes. And then we studied like entity codes, I'm sorry. Then we studied about the container div, how what different, there are different types of divs, what is the use of div, and how we store different tags inside the div. We studied about that and tried implementing that also. Then we studied about the line break, that wherever we'll apply this particular line break, then we'll go to the next line. And we studied how we can add a horizontal line to our web page also. So that was like basic HTML that we studied. And I also showed you the W3 documentation that you have to go through if you want to learn about all the tags that are present in the HTML and practice them. So if you are able to do all of these things, then you will be good to go to move forward with learning web development part. Then we studied about forms and table, which comes in intermediate and a little bit trickier part. So here we studied the format of our HTML, like a format of our table, that like body, the HTML document, table is also divided in the two forms. First of all, we write the table tag like this. First of all, we write the table tag, opening and closing tag. Inside that, we write table head. Then we add table row, and inside that, the th represents that it will be headings. And then inside the body, we add the rows of the table details. So that's how we can create table in HTML. And the next part that we studied about were about the forms, like how we can create form, where what this action does, it redirects us to a new web page. And then what is the use of button and the type of button. If the type of button is submit, then this will submit our form to this particular action. We studied about different types of inputs and how we can associate different labels with the inputs. We studied about all of these things in the yesterday's class. Now starting with CSS. So we also studied some of the things about CSS. So if I just start writing this, yeah. So CSS, okay, what we studied here. So in the CSS part, we studied that there are three ways in which we can write styles, or three ways in which we can add styles to our style sheet, right? There are three ways in which we can add styles. So we were studying about that. So the first method was to add inline styles. This is known as the inline CSS styles. In that, we studied that if there is suppose a heading, right? And here, if we write the attribute as style, I also told you that this is called attribute if you are writing something inside this. And I write hello, I add the closing tag, then this particular thing is known as the style, inline CSS style. So here I can simply say color, 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 and the color of the heading to be red, and this will simultaneously change my heading color to red. The second part that we studied was the second method that I can say apart from inline CSS was using the style tag. It was by using style tag in our HTML document, right? So what we had to do in that, in the body portion, wherever we had the body, here we had to call the style tag. Suppose this is my h1 and I say hello, and here I have to add a style tag, and inside this I will define my styles. Here I will say h1, the color to be, what I can say, blue. So this was the second method that we can add our styles. Okay, the third method was that we can use create a new file. Okay, create a new file, or this method is also known as using style sheet. Okay, so here we had to add a link. In the third method we had to add a link. Let me show it to you. Yeah, so here what we had to do is we had to create a link, like just like this. it will have an attribute of related, and this will be related to style sheet, and the href will be the name of the style and the location of the file in which it is located. So right now it's located beside the styles.css. So it will be the automatically it will be styles.css. Suppose my styles.css was in another folder, so in that case I will write slash the folder name, for example this, and then I will go to my styles.css part. So in the href we simply add locations, and this is, and we are good to go with the styles. So this was the third method. So in after adding this, what we had to do, we had to name take the name, like if I have to target image for creating the styles, I can target that. If I have to target nav for adding the styles, I can do that. So this was the third method, and this is the most common method, or the I can say most used method of adding styles. Okay, why? We'll look into it, why it's very common and why it's very important to learn about this method. So I hope there is no doubt. Yeah, okay, so I think there is no doubt regarding all of these three things that we studied yet in the yesterday's class. Now we'll move a little bit, like a little bit further, and we'll study about what are the different attributes or different style attributes that we can add to our html document, so that we can style it more further. So the first part that we studied was that we can add color property like this. We can add like this, and this was the third approach, the best approach, by creating an external style sheet and then connecting it with my html and css, my connecting it with my HTML file. So these are some of the attributes. So now we are going to study about the colors attribute. So there are three ways of writing colors in HTML document. Okay, three ways of writing color. So the first way is simple using name of the color, right? Simple using name of the color. So if suppose I have to change the color of h1, so I will use h1, and in I will open these parentheses, and I will write color as color property colon as blue, for example. Okay, so what this will do, this will change the color of my heading to blue. Okay, this will change the color of my heading to blue. The second method is by using hex codes. Okay, so what are these hex codes? So hex codes are 6-digit codes of colors. Okay, 6-digit code of colors that we which is followed by a hash symbol. We have a hash symbol, and it is followed by 6-digit code. So if we use this, then we can also add the colors. So there's a very good website that I will suggest you all if you want to create websites, that is color hunt. Okay, so if you will go to colorhunt.com, yeah, so this is the official website, colorhunt.co. If you go to this particular website, then you can see there are a lot of templates that we have for creating the project, for creating our projects, for styling. So I can like literally click on any of them. If I click on this particular color, then you can see it has copied the hex code of this particular color. And if I go back to my web page and like I try adding this to any of my color, for example here color magenta is written, and if I change it to this particular, then I will be getting the 6-digit code of that particular color. And if I add hash, then you can see that particular color has now I have received that. So in that way you can like select a lot of, there are a lot of color codes. You can select or any of them based on your choice, and then you can use them accordingly in your code. So that's the second way how we can add or write colors in our HTML document and style it up accordingly. So for black, we generally have the this particular hexa code. This hexa code is for using black color, and if I write this particular hexa code, then this is for white color. So you can check them out. There are like different color codes. These are for black and the white color, so you can also use them if you don't want to write the name of the color. So this is the second method of using the colors. The third method of using the color is by using the RGB values. Okay, you might have learned or listened somewhere about the RGB values. Okay, so values. So this is also very prevalent. We use it a lot. So if you just go to RGB color palette, so you can get really good website for the color chart of the RGB values, right? So if you just see here, if you click on this, then you will be able to identify the red, green and blue values of this. This is, there are like the different colors you can use. So these are like very different values of for the RGB. So I might have used it somewhere. Yeah. So this is the example of RGB code where the red value is 89, the green value is 151, and blue is 0. So you can see since green value is a lot more larger, so we are getting the green color. If I change it to somewhat closer to black, you can see that the blue value has increased and they are somewhat similar to each other. So this is the concept of RGB. You can also copy and paste that simply and use it in your code. You just have to simply write color and colon RGB and the three numerical values, then you will be able to access these values. So I hope this part is clear to all of you how we can write like different colors. These are the three ways. You might, if you are like studying any code or if you are looking at the code somewhere, you will be able to now identify what exactly is written there. So you can select any of these three methods that you want, and they all are good to go. So I hope this part is clear to all of you. And let me close this. So this was about all about the colors, like how we can add colors and how we can add any value. So this is basically very simple. And if I want to add background color, I can simply write the color background color, and it's like very simple plain English. If you see it very clearly, you can understand what exactly attribute style is being applied, right? So it's very simple property of style. Now the next important property that we have is the text decoration property or the text properties that we say. So suppose I have a particular heading. Now we are going to study about the text properties, right? So suppose I have a text. Let me just take this particular text. Yeah, so it's smaller. Let me make it a little bit larger. So let's say 21. So if I say hello, so this is a text, right? So this particular thing is a text. So I can do a lot of things with these texts. Like I can change, I can change the color of this text. We have tried doing that with our HTML, right? We have tried changing the color of our text in our code. Now let's suppose beyond changing the color, I want to do more formatting to this. For example, I want to make this text bold. It's not bold right now, but I want to make it. So how we can achieve these kind of styles and these kind of formatting in CSS is what we are going to study now. So these all come under the region, under the umbrella of text properties. Okay, so the first most important property, let me just delete this. The first most important property of text is its alignment on the web page. So we have it as, we call it as text align property. Okay, we call it text align property. So it's syncing. Give me a minute. This will be displayed on the screen. Meanwhile, let me show you it in the code. So text align is basically the alignment in the horizontal direction within an element. You can also say on the x-axis of the element. It controls how the text is aligned with an element, right? So it will control how alignment with an element is happening. So for example, our HTML document, it will control on which portion of the page our alignment of the text will be displayed. So if the width is suppose 50%, so it will take 50% of the screen. So that's how we can do the alignment. I'll explain you a little bit about what is width. Don't find it very overwhelming. Just for now, understand that there is a style attribute named as text align, which we can use in our code and accordingly work on it. So let me just go to my file. Yeah, this was about my file. I have added the style sheet of index.css. I have connected my css file, and right now the text align property, as you can see on your screen, is aligned towards the right part. So if I click copy path and if I go to my web page, then I can see that, yeah, it's in the right part, it's aligned to the right part with respect to the html document. So this is the attribute, style attribute, that I was talking about right now, that this particular thing is the, like, the text properties. Okay, so let me refresh this once again. Give me a minute. hmm I have to connect it to the internet. Okay, so you can try this out if you want. Meanwhile, the text alignment property, left, right, like there are different types of alignments. Okay, if I just click on, you can see this is center, end, justify, left, right, start. We can also calculate it by using the calculate function, inherit, initial, unset, and variable. So there are a lot of alignments that we can do. So we can also add end, or we can also add center to this. So that's a very important property that we should know if we have to like add the styles to it. The second part is the, yeah, the text alignment property is done. Now, as I was saying to you all guys before, what if I want to make a text bold, right? I want to make a text a little bit bolder. So if you see, if we go back to our index.html page, the basic html page, then to the headings, the bold form is implemented by default. We don't have to add that. Like if you see this, this is bold by default. We don't have to do that because headings are bold by default. But paragraphs, if you try writing a paragraph, like this is a paragraph, and I click on save, go back, click on refresh, then you can see this is not bold. We have to make it bold manually. So if suppose I want to make this paragraph bold, what I can do is I can target this paragraph in my CSS file and then add the font weight property of it to bold. So what is the font weight property? Let me just try writing this. So this is the p tag. I have accessed the p tag. Now I will write the style attribute. Syntax will be similar to the color and text align property, and I will simply write here font weight property to some value, let's say 700 for example. If I go back, I click on refresh, then you can see it has become bold. Fine, this has become bolder. So let's suppose I want to increase this particular value to 900, so this will become more bold. Okay, this will become more bold. Now we can, in place of, like, if you don't want to add number, you can also say I want it to be bolder only. Okay, I don't want to specify a number, but I want it to be displayed a little bit bolder. So I can do that also. If I will click on refresh, then this will still be bold. Now let's suppose the default value of, if I, let's just comment this out and I click on refresh, then let's suppose this default particular value, let me zoom it a little bit. You can see, I think for me, this is more a lot bold. I want to make it light, or I want to make this particular text thin. So what I can use, I can add here the font weight property as lighter also. Okay, or the thin font weight property as smallest value. So if I just refresh this, so nothing will happen because by default paragraph is in a thin format. So if I just remove this and make this lighter, nothing will happen because by default paragraphs are in the lighter theme. Fine, so that is what I am talking about. So this is by default bold. Let's try adding font weight lighter property to our heading only, because it's default, by default its font weight is bold. So this should become lighter. Let me refresh this, so you can see now it has become lighter. So in this way we can manually change the styles of the fonts that we have. Okay, Okay. Now the next part is what we have here is, yeah. So this is done. Okay. We can add more styles to it. For example, uh, in place of font weight bold, we can add font style also, font display, font variant, font size. So let me tell you a little bit about font size. So suppose if you see this particular paragraph, what we have here is, we have this paragraph in a little bit smaller format. What if I don't want the text to be this small? I want it to be larger than this, right? I want it to be larger than this paragraph. So what I can do is, I can just target my paragraph, and what I will say font size to be what we can say 200 pixels, for example. Okay, I will click on refresh. So you can see that I am getting this text as a lot more bigger than it was in the original way, right? This is like a lot more larger than what we had. So in this way I can target the size of the font manually also. So it's a lot bigger, so I can change it to 100 pixels only. Now if you ask what exactly is pixels, so I'll explain this to you a lot more in a clear way. What are the different types of like styles that we have for the size? Okay, so there are different types of units. Let me just give you a brief overview about that. And if you go check out the W3 schools documentation, let's just move to it. If we go to W3 schools documentation, we go here and we select CSS from here, and we go to the uh, fonts portion of this. Okay, so you can see font selection is very important. They are saying this is about the font family. Let's just quickly go to font size. Okay, now they are also saying that the font size property does what? It sets the size of the text. Okay, so we are if we are able to manage the size of the text, it's very important for web designing. Like this particular text is a different size, this is different, and these are also different sizes. So for beautifying our code, for making our website look more appealing, we have to have these font styles with us. Okay, otherwise it will get very difficult for us if we have the default like sizes like what we have for paragraph and the heading, right? So they are saying that we should always use proper HTML tags like H1 for headings and for paragraphs. This you guys already know that we can create headings from paragraphs also by styling them, but it's never a good practice to do so. Okay. Now font size can be absolute, they can be relative sizes. We'll study about what is absolute and relative in the coming time. So for now, let's just skip this part and we'll go to the, yeah. So the first unit is pixels. Okay, it is known as pixels. So you might have like listened this word somewhere. You might have listened it in the image part, like they say images have pixels in them. So this pixel is not similar to that image pixel. Never confuse yourself with that part, that this is not that this pixel does not mean the image pixels. This is the first static unit that we have in CSS. This is very static. Okay, what is meant by static? So if I just go to my web page, okay, and I try reducing the size of my screen, okay, so this is very static to the page. Okay, this is not changing, this is very static. Why? Because it's changing like with the screen only, it's not like very becoming smaller. If I want it to be smaller on this like mobile screens, it's nothing is happening to it, it's static. So pixels come under the one of the static units in CSS. Okay, let me just write here static units and the dynamic units. Okay, now here it will be pixels. Okay, this comes under static units. Dynamic units, or we can say relative units. So if anyone asks what exactly static units does, So you can clearly say that static units don't change their like size, they don't change their font size when there is change in the screen size. Okay, whenever there is change in the screen size. Okay, now, okay, the next unit that we have here is, give me a minute, yeah. So the next unit that we have is M. Okay, we can, in place of adding pixel, we can set the font size with M. So if I want to allow users to resize the text in the browser menu, okay, so many developers use M instead of pixels. So what is the calculative approach of that? If you want to write 16 pixels, okay, then it is equal to 1 M. Okay, 16 pixels is equal to 1 M. So if I am writing font size as 2.5 M, for example, then this is called a relative unit. Okay, this will change according to my screen, or according to the parent. This will be applied according to the parent. Okay, so the text size in M is the same as previous example. However, with the M size, it is possible to adjust the text size in all browsers. What is meant by all browsers? Like on different browser screen, there will be a difference in the text. Okay, let me just go back and I click on, if I say the font size as 100 pixels to, let's say, 2.5 rem, I go back and go back to the screen, click on refresh. So you can see there is a difference, right? If I go back, there is a difference. And if I just increase the increase the screen size, this will change according to my screen and also according to the parent, that is the HTML document. Suppose I had this inside a div, and that div is smaller, right? That particular div is smaller, then this is a paragraph will also be comparatively smaller than it is displaying right now. Okay, so that's how we can, give me a minute, yeah, this will be M. Okay, so let me just go back, click on refresh. So you can see this is happening according to the parent. Now there is the third kind of unit that we have, which is uh, percentage. Okay, the third type of unit, which also comes as a part of the relative unit. So here in the relative unit, we have studied about M. Okay, the second one was in the relative unit, the percentage. Okay, I'll explain you also wherever we have to use these units, like how to decide which unit to use. We'll learn about it at a little bit later stage. So if I just change it to 2.5%, okay, let's see what happens. I just go back, click on refresh. So you can see now it's only 2.5% of the screen of the browser, basically our browser. So what is happening here? The percentage is being applied with respect calculated to the your browser size. If I say make it 100%, now let's see what happens. So this will be according to the size of my browser, and let's make it let me give this percentage example with div also to you all. So suppose I go to my index.html, I create a div. Okay, so inside this div I will give one h2 to it, and I will say, hey, I am inside this div. Okay, I go back, click on refresh. So you can see I am getting this particular heading saying, hey, I'm inside the div. Now I will add some styles to differentiate this div from rest of the portion. So what I will do, let me just change the font size to, let's say, 3 rem for now. I'll explain you what rem is also. Just bear with me for some time. Yeah, so if I write here div and I say width of the div, this is the width property, and I want the width of the div to be 50%. Okay, I want it to be 50%, and I say color or background color of this div should be aquamarine, for example. Okay, I click on refresh. You can see the width of this particular div is 50% of the whole complete document. If I change the screen size, then you can see this is always 50% of the screen, always, no matter how much smaller you make it, right? So this will always be 50%. I can also make it 70%. So if you want to like create what I can say, if you want to create containers, or if you want to create uh, elements which have your size according to the changing of the screens, what you can use is this percentage unit. Okay, so let me just now quickly explain you guys where to use these units, like how to decide when to use which unit, right? So I might be having it somewhere. Yeah. Okay, so if you guys have any doubts anywhere, ask in the chat box. Okay, and here you will like be able to understand the use cases of the units. So the first one is absolute units that I told you about. They are pixel, centimeter, inches, and mm. You can use any of them. All of them are supported, right? And they will be static, means you will not be able to change their sizes based on browser screen if the browser screen is changing. Okay, relative units are three: percentage, m, and rem. Now, if we see the percentage part, then you can see the width. If I specify as 50%, then they have also said that it will take or cover half of the width of the parent element. Okay, they will cover half of the width of the parent element. Now, sometimes it's the percentage of the element, not the parent. Okay, like let's suppose line height. So, line height will be 50% of the font size of the element, not the parent. So, this what it signifies, it says that wherever you are applying the units, this will be applied based on how they are calculated. Okay, so if we have width, so width will be the width percentage will be calculated based on the parent element. But if comes for line height, this will not be calculated based on parent element. This will be calculated based on font size of the element. Okay, so this is the thing that you have to remember. That's why we use percentage for adding for widths, but we never use percentages for using line height. Okay, we never write it like this. It's like very difficult, then if it then becomes very difficult to style our document. So never use line height like this, or any font styles basically with percentage. We should never do that. Okay, so if we go to the m, so m unit font size m is same font size as the parent. Okay, if I say that this is 1m, so 1m represents that if I have a parent. Okay, so the font, if I have anything written there, then the font size of my element will be same as the font size of the parent. Okay, if I say 2m, it will be twice the font size of what I have in my parent element. Okay, what is the parent element? Let me also tell you this once. So if you see it very clearly here, div is wrapping my h2, right? So in this case, my h2 is what? My h2 is child of div. Okay, and if I say what is div, so my div is parent of h2. Okay, so remember this very clearly, what all these two things are. Okay, so that's what they're saying. So if my parent, let's suppose the size of my parent is, the size of my parent div is, let's suppose, 50%. So if I write 1m, then my font size will be similar to my div. And if I write 2m, then my font size will be twice that of my parent. Okay, Now with pixels we can't scale an element. That is what I was saying right now. We cannot scale an element because it's an absolute unit. So that's why we use relative units, so that they maintain their proportions equally on all the browser screens. So whenever you are writing the fonts, never use pixels with them. Okay, so this is the important thing to note. If you are using fonts and you want to change their size, you have to use the M and the rem units, not the percentage and the pixel values. I hope this part is clear to all of you. You can write it somewhere. If we are using rem, so why we use rem, let me explain it to you. And why don't we only use m unit? So if we have a nested list, for example, they are describing that if we have a nested list and we are using m, and if I change the size of the outermost list, the units will stack and increase decrease the size of everything nested in it. So what this means, since suppose I have a list, outermost list. Okay. Let me explain it to you here more clearly. What are the nested list? So suppose I have a list, uh, fruits. Okay, fruits, and inside the fruits I have another list. Okay. Next is I have vegetables here, and I write here onion. Okay, so suppose I have this. So this is an example of, if you see it very clearly, this particular thing is an example of nested list. Okay, so if I have a unit, let's suppose the size of this particular fruit is, for example, 15 pixels. Okay, suppose this is 15 pixels, and I have added one m to it, to the list inside this. So what will be this? This will be 15 pixels. Why? Because the size of the parent of this particular list, the size of the parent of this particular list is the outermost list, right? So this will be 15 pixels if I write 1m. But let's suppose change, I'm not liking the size of this particular outer list, I change it to 20 pixels. But I don't want to change the size of the inner lists, right? I don't want to change their size, but they will also change automatically. Now they will become 20 pixels. So this is one of the shortcomings of m, that we cannot style the inside elements that we have applied with m, and we cannot change them manually. So to resolve this issue, we came with the rem. So what rem does, so it is relative to root of html document. So what is the root of html document? So let's suppose this is your browser. Okay, and inside this we are writing the html code, and we are able to see headings and paragraph and everything. Okay, so this is html document. Let's suppose the size of my html document is, for example, 1440 pixels. Okay, this is the size of my html document. And if I have written anything of the heading here, and I say make it to rem. Okay, make the size of my heading to rem. So what this will do, this will be according to, this will be according to my html document size. Okay, so due to this reason, being with the compared with the root of the document, it becomes easier for us to style the headings and everything. So this is the best unit that we can use for styling basically. So you can use them. When are m's useful then? So if we are adding headings, paragraph and everything with the rem unit, then when are m useful? So m's are generally useful when we want to scale properties. For example, we can add them with border radius. Okay, we'll study about what is border radius, but for now understand that for border, for padding, for margin, we can use M properties without any issues. So I hope this part is clear to all of you. Okay. If you guys have any doubt, you can write in the chat box and I am open to address that. Okay. So I'll give you a minute to screenshot these details for you to revise it further, and revise it right now. If you have any doubt, you can ask, and then we'll continue so that this will not be very overwhelming for all the new members that we have. And if they are not able to understand, you can just go through this document once, take the screenshot for later reference, and then we'll continue further. Okay, shall we continue further? If there are no doubts, I hope all of these parts are clear to all of you. Now, there are some more units that we have. Primarily, they are used for width and height. So they are VH and VW. You might be able to come across these units somewhere in the future if you are looking at others code. So let me explain it to you what they are. So VH stands for view height. Okay, VH stands for view height. Okay, so suppose your view height, this is your HTML document, and your view height is this. If you are able to view this portion on your browser, then this is your view height. So if you say view height, make it 100%, then you will be able to see your element this much bigger in size. Okay, this bigger in size. And if you say make VW, view width, okay, this I want to be 80%. Okay, so this is the width that you are going to see. Okay, So they also come very important when you are specifying width and height. They are generally used with width and height. So you can also use vmax and vmin, like 50 vmax or width of 50 vmax. So you can also use them. They are not used that much, so you can skip this also. But this is very important, like where to use the vw and the vh properties. And we use this quite a lot when we are writing a code with width and height, basically. Now, yeah. So if the value of vh is greater than vw, then height will be 50 vh and width we can say 50 vh. And if vw is greater than vh, then we can specify height as 50w, and so on. So we can do that for vmax and widthmin, they are saying, right? So we can also specify that they will be decided according to what is like larger. If you say height 50 vmax and you have the vh value greater than vw, right? So for both of them same thing will be applied, and similarly for the second case. So this is very important. Size of the element can change if the size of the screen changes. So these are the different types of units that we have in css, based on which we can add sizes to our font sizes to our styles. Okay, give me a minute. Font sizes, color, text properties, units. Okay, so we have covered the part of text alignment. We have covered the part of font weight. We have covered text decoration. Okay, we are going to study about the text decoration now. So, okay, what is text decoration? So, if you look very clearly at some of the text that we have on the internet also, you might be able to see that, suppose I have written here one heading, hello, they have underline below them a lot of times, right? So how we can bring this particular underline? So, or we can also bring overline. In lot of places you might have seen that there is a heading and it's crossed like this, right? I can also bring these kind of headings, underlines, or I can bring dashed underlines. So all of this part that I am doing right now, they all come under the umbrella of text decoration. They all come under the umbrella of text decoration. Okay, so it I have also written it here also. So it controls the appearance of lines that are on the text. So what are the lines? Some is underline, overline, strike through. Strike through is that which cuts the word, right? And we can specify the color of these underlines as well. We can specify if they are going to be dotted, or the lines are going to be solid, dashed, wavy. We can specify that also. We can also remove the default underline under the links that we have. Okay, let me go here. Yeah, so here now I am going to write three things. Okay, and I will add different styles to it. I have an h1. I have one h1, and I will say heading 1. I have h2. I'll say heading 2. I have h3. I'll say heading 3. Okay, if I go back to my web page, click on refresh, then you can see, okay, heading 1 has some styles. Let me just quickly remove this. So you can see there I have my 3 headings. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna target these in my CSS. I'll remove everything from my CSS file so that I don't want all the styles right now. I will target my h1 here, and what I'm going to do is I am writing the attribute of text decoration, and I will say I want it underline. Okay, and if I click on refresh, then you can see I'm getting underline below my heading. Similarly to this, suppose I want overline, what I can do, I can write my text decoration to overline. And if I do this, go back, you can see this is now overline. Now if I target my third heading and I say the text decoration should be strike through, right? It should be line through or strike through. So this is line through. If I click on refresh, then you can see very clearly I am able to decorate my text in three formats. I can also remove the decoration. How I can remove this? Let me add one anchor tag. So if I add here one anchor tag and I say this is an anchor tag, okay, and I click on refresh, then you can see this has by default it has underline by default. I have not add any styles to it, but it has underline by default. What if I don't want underline below my anchor tag? So I can simply go to my css file. I will say target anchor tag, and I will say text decoration property of the anchor tag should be none. If I click on refresh, then you can see now I don't have any underline below my anchor tag, and it's working completely fine. So that's how we can add text decoration property to it. Okay. Yeah. So give me a minute. That's what they are saying. We can remove default underline under the links by setting the text decoration to none, that we have done here. Okay. Now, what is line height? So suppose you have two texts, hello and bye. Okay, what is line height exactly? It's the this particular vertical distance. I'm not going to implement all of the attributes. I'm just explaining you to them. You can write it and try it later on in your code. So it targets vertical height. So if you will write line height to, let's say, 10 pixels, then this will increase the distance between these two texts. Okay, this is the concept of line height. They've also written that it controls vertical line spacing. Letter spacing is, if I have written here hello, okay, so there is a difference between this hello and there is a lot of difference between this hello, right? So this distance is covered by letter spacing. Okay, if you guys want to try on your own, you can try. Give me a minute. Okay, so I was telling you guys about the letter spacing. Font size we have already discussed, and I also told you that we have lots of units. We have studied about them also. Now the next part is font family. Now, if you go to OneNote and I'll just try writing some text here, I'll increase the font size to 36 for better visibility, And what I'm going to do is I am going to change it back to 36. If you see this particular portion, hello, and I change the size to, like, I change the style of the font, I can change it. See, this is Arial black. This is a different font. So how we can do this by using HTML, right? Increase the quality of the video. Let me check. Okay, camera resolution, but I don't think this will work for screen sharing. But I've done that. If that is possible, I'll just zoom it a little bit if that can work. So how we can use different styles? So we can use font family for that. So suppose I have my heading, I want to change the style, font style of this. So I will simply write font family and select for the available font families that I have here. So this is Courier, Monospace, Gill Sans, Lucida, and a lot of them. So I can select uh, Verdana, right? Let's see what is the difference on the browser. You can see that the font style is different from the rest of the headings that we have below, right? So that's how we can target the font family and change it accordingly. There is also one of another good thing that we have for font family. So if you search on Google Fonts, if you go to Google Fonts and click on browse fonts, then you will be able to find a lot of fonts, different fonts for your code. Like this is Playwright. You can also create fonts like this. Okay, and if you go and click on get font and you click on get embed code, okay, you will be able to see the embedded code. So how we are going to use this? So you might be able to see, let me zoom it a little bit. You might be able to see that we have links for that, right? Links related to pre-connect, and then we have the href of our Google Fonts, right? So you have, what you have to do, you have to simply copy this path. Okay, they have our Playwright font displayed here. See, the family is equal to Playwright, and they have this style sheet. So I will click on copy code, and since these are the links, I'm gonna go to my head portion and paste these links here. So, and let me just format the document a little bit, and you can see that these are the these are for my font family. Now if I go to my index.css file, then I can simply write here. They have also given the code for what I have to write in CSS. So they are saying I have to write for font family, Playwright VN, and serif. So I will just simply copy this font family part and I will paste it here. Okay, I will click on refresh. I will go back to my browser and I refresh here. So you can see now I am able to use that particular font on my web browser. And so in this particular way, you can use millions and millions of fonts that are being displayed here, right? There are a lot many. You can click any of them, you can search them, and you can use them accordingly in your code, right? So I hope this part of font family is also clear to all of you, how we can use the Google fonts and then beautify our code a lot more, right? So we have worked out with divs, this is all done. Text properties part is also completed. If you guys have any doubts, you can ask. So now we'll move to another more important part, which is selectors in CSS. So what exactly are selectors that we have here? So let me just the new command. Okay. So now what we have on our plate the selectors in CSS. We have selectors in CSS. So what exactly is selector? So if you look very closely what we were doing in CSS file, if I just go back to my CSS file, then you can see what we were doing was we were writing the name of our tag, opening the parenthesis, and then adding the styles accordingly inside that. So what exactly is this called in CSS file? So this is called, if I write here h1 and the styles, so this portion of the CSS part is known as the selectors. Okay, so this is not the only selector that we have for h1. Okay, so there are different types of selectors. So the first one is the universal selector. What this universal selector means, let's try it out. Okay, so if I just write star here and open the parenthesis and I write color to brown. Okay, and I remove everything that we have for the style. I only have the star and the color to brown. Let me just go back, click on refresh. So you might be able to see the difference here, right? What is the difference exactly? That I have not written anything in my CSS file, but as soon as I had written the star symbol and added the color of brown, all the text that I had on the web page has changed its color to brown, right? So you can do this, right? In place of adding same style to different values for heading also, for 2 also, 3 also, what you can do, you can simply write star and change the styles of all of the things that are present in the HTML document. So that's why this particular star symbol, okay, this particular star symbol is known as the universal selector. Okay, this selects everything that is present in the document. The thing that we were using right now is known as the element selector. We are simply selecting the element and we are adding the styles to it, right? Then in, it's not like we can use only one selector at a time. We can add comma and we can use more than two selectors. So if I, in place of this, if I write h1 and I write comma h2, so let's see what's going to happen. So here I have added the color brown to it only. If I go back, click on refresh, so you can see only h1 and h2 are getting targeted with my styles. So suppose I want to add same styles to my h1, same styles to my h2, I don't have to repeat my style code 2 times. Writing h1 color brown, h2 color brown, I can simply add comma and then do this accordingly, right? So this is what we were using right now. This is what this is element selector, okay, and the more than like selector list. Okay, it selects all h1s and all h2s. Now the third part which comes very handy and it's very important and which is generally used, that we use generally, this is id selector. Okay, we select an element based on its id. So if we go back to our HTML document and here I can add an attribute in my h1, I can say id and I can write it as heading 1. Okay, so what I have done, I have simply added an attribute of id and I have added heading 1 here. I'll save this and I'll go to index.css, remove this h1. Now what do you see here? An id of heading 1 given to h1. Now what I will do, I will add hash symbol and I will write the name of that id and I will say color to be aqua. Okay, I will click on refresh, go back. You can see that by targeting id also I am able to change the style. Okay, I am able to change this particular style. So that's very important part, that using the IDs we can also change. So we can give different names to our elements. Like here H1, I have given ID1. You can give ID2 to H2, ID3 to H3, and same for anchor tag. You can do that, and you can also add styles to it accordingly. This is a syntax, like hash followed by the ID name, property and value, whatever you want to add here. Okay. Now, another important thing is ID should always be minimum. Like, don't use a lot of say IDs with the same like name. Okay, so don't use them. You can use multiple classes in place of IDs. So here for H1, I have added ID of heading 1. Let's add a class for H2. Okay, so I will add here a class, and I will call it heading 2. So for targeting the class, what I can do is I can write dot, okay, and I will say heading 2, and I can say the color property to be blue violet. Okay, so now you can see that I am, by targeting the class property, I am able to add this value. So I can use multiple classes also. Like I can copy this, paste this here, paste this here also, right? So all of these class will be applied here, right? So I hope this part is clear to all of you. This particular part about the IDs and class. Now we also have a descendant selector. So suppose inside list I have anchor tags. Okay, what? Let me explain it to you here. What exactly is descendant selector? Let's suppose you have a list, uh, fruits. Okay, and inside these fruits you have anchor tags. Okay, like if you click on apple, you will be redirected to some website. Okay, for example, some website apple.com. Okay, and similarly this, right? This is your list. Now outside this list you have another anchor tag, Google, for example. Okay, this is created using list, and this is created using anchor tag, right? This is also an anchor tag, but this is outside list. So if you want to target only the anchor tags that are present inside the list item, then what you can you can use descendant selector. See, list and then space followed by anchor tag, and you can only change the color of these particular lists only. This will not change. Okay, so this is descendant selector. Adjacent selector is if you have a heading, and just below your heading the paragraph is there, only that paragraph style will change and nothing else. So this is adjacent selector. Direct child selector can also be selected. So suppose inside your div you have a direct list. Okay, inside your div only that list will be targeted and that style will be changed. You can also select attribute selector, like if or change all the input styles whose type is text. You can change that. Now there are some pseudo classes. Okay, so what are these pseudo classes? So let me add it somewhere. So here it's H1. If I just go here and you see this particular heading class on H2, right? So what I can do is I can add here heading 2, and pseudo classes are applied using this. You add colon and you say hover. Okay, and you open the parenthesis now. Okay, now I will say change the color to blurry wood, for example. Okay, now if I go back, what is happening? As soon as I hover on it, what is hovering? Bringing cursor on top of the text is called hovering. So if I just go there, click on refresh, so I have added this to class heading 2. So as soon as I hover on it, you can see I am able to change the style of my class. So this is known as pseudo class. So there are a lot of pseudo classes that we have. Hover is one of them. We have active also. So what is active means, if you click on it, then the style will change. Checked, if you have checked something, then that will change. Nth type, so every other type, like after one more, one another. So you can also use nth of type. You can check this out on the internet, practice on your own. These are same. Now if something is using two colon symbols, they are called pseudo elements. So if I just want to target the style of first letter only of my heading 2, okay, so what I can do is I can target my heading 2 and I can add these two colons. Now they will be pseudo elements. Okay, first one was the pseudo classes, second is the pseudo elements. So now I will say my first letter, right, and I want to change the color of my first letter, or let's say I want to change the font size of my first letter to 4 rem. Okay, I go back, I click on refresh. So you can see only first letter has increased its size, and rest all are on the same size. So that's how we can use pseudo elements. So I hope you are able to find the difference between the pseudo class and the pseudo element. This is very important. Okay, so go through this very carefully. You can use all many more. There are a lot of them. You can search on the simply Google and practice this, or try working around, playing around with this, and you'll be good to go with working on these elements. Now the next important property that we have is the cascading property of CSS. So what is the cascading property? So we have added different selectors, right? We can target a particular style using h1 also. We can target h1 using id also. But what if I have written both of them together? So you might be wondering what is happening right now. So let me just remove this, and what I will do is I will add class also here for my h1, and I will say heading. Okay, I have done this. Now what I'm going to do is I will go to my CSS and I will target my element right now, and I will say color will be blue. Okay, I will go back, click on refresh, so you can see blue color on the heading. So this is my element. Now suppose I don't remove this and I add heading class dot heading, right? This was my heading class, see? So I have added that here, this heading class, and I will give it some different color. Let's say green, right? If I go back, then you will be able to find a big difference here. So now as you can see, I'm getting green color of the class, right? I'm not getting the blue color of h1. It has overlapped. Let's try with id also. So if I write heading 1 and I say color will be red, click on refresh, and you can see now it has changed to red color. So can there be a problem with order? Let's check. If I add it here, right, now if order was a problem, then I should get a green color. So if I click on refresh, still I'm getting red color. So what cascading property describes us is that if you have applied different styles to same element using different things like element, id and class, then they will follow a priority order. They will follow a priority order. So what will be that priority order? First priority order will be id will be given most preference. If you have written any style in id, that will be applied. Then anything that you applied to class will be applied, then anything you have added to your element will be applied. This is your first priority order. So that's why if you have your id, that particular style will be applied. If you don't have it, then class property will be applied, and even if you don't have it, the element property will be applied. Okay, so this is the first priority that we have. The second is the order in which it is written. Now let's suppose you have written h1 only 3 times. Okay, here you have described it as green, here you have described it as black. Okay, now all three are elements and all of three are targeting the same value, right? So let's check what we'll get right now. So if I click on refresh, then you can see that I'm getting the black color, the last color. So if you have same values, then order will be considered. If I take it here, now I will get green color. Okay, so that's a very important thing, that the element that is written at the last will be applied and rest will be overlapped accordingly. So I hope this part is clear to all of you. So this is the order in which we write. Okay, order in which it is written. Now the third is the style method that we have used. Okay, third priority order is style method that we have used. So in the start of this session, I told you that there are three methods of writing the styles, right? The first method is by using this particular, creating a new file and adding the link to it, and then you can use this. The second is creating a style tag and then accordingly. So suppose this is my heading 1, and let me just remove this color. I have added style of blue color to it. Okay, I go back to my web page, you can see this is blue. Now if I go to my index.html, and again here I add this method of style, and I say change the color to green. Okay, now what will happen? Can any one of you guess, like, what particular property will be applied here? If you are not able to guess it correctly, let me tell it to you. Let me show it to you actually. If you go here, click on refresh, so you can see the inline styling is getting applied. So what this means is, the inline styling method is given most priority, then the file method. So this particular style, if you have added to any element, this will overlap everything that is present on your on your code. Okay, this will be overlapped. So that's what they're saying, that they have the maximum specificity and they are extremely specific. So this is why we don't recommend using it like this, right? Because they will overlap everything that is present in the file. So this is not a good practice to do. So we don't use it that often, right? If you write anywhere this important tag, then this will override everything, every other declaration that we have. For example, if you have this style color green and you want this to be displayed always on your h1, so here you can write not important, and this will tell your browser that this color is important and this should be displayed only no matter what style you have applied. So in this case you can add this. So I hope this part is clear to all of you. And yeah, so cascading properties and the selectors, that was an important part, is also clear. I'll give you a minute or two to take the screenshot of the things that we have here, and then we can continue further, I suppose. If you guys have any doubts, you can ask, else we'll move forward. Do you guys have any doubts? Okay, now we'll quickly move to the next part. Hmm. Okay. Hmm. Text properties we have done. Selectors part is also complete. Now we'll study another important concept, which is box model in CSS. Okay. Now I have also written that here, that everything inside CSS is a box. Okay. So what this means, if you just go to inspect, okay, and you scroll down a little bit, let me open this, and you scroll down a little bit, you will be able to see this particular box, right? It has margin, it has border, padding, and some numerical values, right? So what this means, even if you click anything that is present on the web page like this, or you click on this, so everything contains this particular box. What this means is, every HTML element that we have right now, they are specifically represented as a box model. Okay, give me a minute, I'll just sync this quickly. Mm, okay, so I think now it's, no, it's not syncing right now. Okay, I'll explain it to you here only. So if you see very clearly, I have this. Let me check if I have any div. I'll just quickly create one div so it will be better for understanding, right? So let me just remove this and create a div. Okay, and inside this div, I will say h3 will be there. I am inside div. I will go to my index.css and I will say the div should have a width of, give me a minute. Yeah, so my div will have a width of 300 pixels, height of 300 pixels, and background color of my div will be brown. Okay, I will go back and I will click on refresh. So you can see I'm getting 300 pixels div, and this is, let me zoom it a little bit. Okay, yeah. So if you see very clearly, let me show it to you like this. Yeah. So this is 300 pixel div. If I click on inspect here, you can see this particular portion represents the width and height, right? So we have specified 300 pixels and 300 pixels, so we are getting that. Padding, what is the padding? Padding is adding some of the spacing between the elements and the outer line. Okay, so if I just add here 50, okay, and I click on enter, so you can see this text has shifted a little bit downwards when I added the padding. And if you hover on the padding portion also, you will be able to see this color, that 50 pixels of padding has been applied to the top, right? This is the top padding. I can also add here 20, this is left, right? Now my element has shifted 20 pixels towards the right part, right? So everything is same, just my content has shifted. I can add here 20 also, and below that also I can do that. So what is happening now? My content is shifted inside. So padding is applied inside. This is very important, and it's added to give space between the border and the content. Okay. Now if I go to the border, okay, so let me just quickly show it to you guys. So this is not coming like this. Let me add one more thing. You can add styles here also if you want. Let me show it to you once. Yeah, this is your element, right? Border top. So border top width, and you can add border will be solid, right? So you can see you are getting 2 pixels of solid border here, some solid border of by default 2 pixels. And if I just scroll down, now you can see zero point 0.8 value of here, right? You change it to 2. Okay, change it to 10, anything you want from here. Where it was, yeah, here you can add this. So border is basically adding the portion on the line, right? Now what exactly is margin? Margin is outside, like how much space give for the outer element and the div element itself. So if I add here, give spacing of 30 pixels. So now if I hover on it, you can see there is a space between anchor tag and margin, right? So these all things come inside the box model in CSS. So border, you obviously know what border is, right? Border that comes on the line. Padding is the space between the content box and the border that we have studied right now. Width is the width and height is the content area that we were seeing right now, right? 300 pixels and 300 pixels. And margin is the space between the outer contents and your content box. Okay, so these all things come inside the box model, and everything that you have in HTML is considered as a box. Okay, everything in CSS is a box, and that's how we apply properties to it. Now let's target border first. Okay, so you can specify border width, you can specify border color, and you can specify border style. How? By using the shorthand notation. Okay, what is this shorthand notation? You can simply write, if you go to CSS, okay, and here the background color is brown, I will write border. Okay, at first I will specify border width, this will be 4 pixels. Okay, width, then what they are saying, style. Okay, so my style will be solid, and third part that they're saying is color, so I will say blue color. Okay, so this is a shorthand notation. I will go back, I will click on refresh, so you can see now I'm getting a border of 4 pixels, solid and blue. If I change it to dotted, for example, okay, I will click on refresh, so you can see now I'm getting the dotted border. I can also change it to dashed. I'm getting dashed border, right? So you can do this by using the shorthand notation for border. Okay, this is the most used. Shorthand is most used. You don't write it like this. You write it like this. Okay. Now, what is border radius? So let me just go back, and if I add here border radius, just see very closely this particular corner. Okay, this is right now at 90 degrees, right? And if I change it to 30 pixels border radius, I go back, I click on refresh, now you can see it has become circular. So that's how I can change the radius of my border also, and this will change accordingly. Now these are not sharp edges, the edges are 30 pixel rounded, right? If I make it 100%, let's make it 100%. So border radius 100%. See, now it has become a circle. So if you change the border radius to 100%, this will become a circle. Okay. So this is the shorthand for border. Now, yeah, similar to border, we have padding. Okay. So padding between space and content box and border. We have padding left, padding right. We can specify it like that, or we can use shorthands. So there are two types of shorthands. So if I just write here, yeah, if this is my div, If I just simply write here padding and I write 10 pixel, so now this particular 10 pixel will be applied on all the four sides. Okay, let me just change the border radius to 100. Remove this border radius. Okay, so if you see very clearly, padding of 10 pixels has been applied on all the four sides. Let me refresh this again. Okay, padding on 10 pixels has been applied on all the four sides. You can see this very clearly, right? This is the first shorthand. What if I want to change the values on top and bottom and left and right? So what I can do is I can write it like this. So 10 pixels will be for top and bottom, and 30 pixels will be for left and right. So if I click on refresh, so you can see 10 pixels for top and bottom and 30 pixels for left and right. So I can do that also. You can see here 30 pixels on left and right and 10 pixels on top and bottom. I can use a third shorthand, padding, and if I write it three times, 10 pixels, 20 pixels, and 30 pixels. Okay, if I write it like this, I click on refresh. So now you can see that 10 pixel is applied to the top, 20 pixels to left and right, and 30 pixels to the bottom. Okay, so this is the third shorthand. Fourth is you can add custom padding to it, 10 pixel, 20 pixel, 30, 40, whatever you want. And if I write it like this, you'll be able to see different paddings on all the four sides. I hope this part is clear to all of you. This is for padding. Now, another important point, border box tells the browser to account for any bordering or padding in the values we specify, right? So if we send element width to 100 pixels, then 100 pixels will include our border and padding that we have added, and the content box will shrink to absorb that extra width. Okay, so this is important part. So suppose you add 300 pixels of width, okay, and you add 10 pixel of border and padding, then your content will reduce a little bit to accommodate that border and padding. Okay, so your element will not increase its width and height, but it will shrink a little bit to accommodate in that 100 pixels. Okay, so that's why border box is important. Now margin is space outside the border. It's exactly similar to padding. Just in place of padding, you have to add margin here. So let me just select padding and I will change this to margin. Okay, click here, click on refresh. So you can see 10 pixel on top and all the different values, right? So I can do that also. I hope this part is clear to all of you. Now, okay. Okay, so we have now completed the part of box model. We have completed the units. Uh, Now we have to study about the display part. Okay, let me just open this file, paste this in my browser. Okay, you can see here that I have three divs of green color. Okay, I have three divs. These are the three divs. Okay, they have, if I open the style folder and I go to div, you can see olive dab background color is being applied, border of black, and displays inline block right now. Okay, so there are three types of displays. So if you are selecting inline, okay, then let's see what happens. If your display property of your any element that you have, if it's inline, then you won't be able to specify any height to it, any width to it, or any kind of margin to it. Okay, so if you have your display inline, you won't be able to do any of these things that we have specified above for the css. If I change it to block, I click on refresh. Now they are coming in on vertical line. Why? Because you will be able to specify width, you will be able to specify height if your display property is block. You will be able to add margin to of 50 pixels to it. See, there is 50 pixels margin on all side. If I click on inspect, you can also check that we have 50 pixels of margin on all four sides. Okay, so you will be able to specify width, height, and margin. In turn, you will be able to add the box model, but there is a one important, very important aspect, that this horizontal portion will be completely covered by your element. You won't be able to add anything in this horizontal portion. That's why they have come to the vertical line. Now let's suppose you don't want this. To overcome this, you want all of them in three horizontal line, in one horizontal line, right? So what you can do is you can use best of the both worlds. You can use inline block, and this will bring the best properties of both, and you will be able to see them here. Okay, so that's the use of inline block and inline properties in the display. We have another property in display, which is two actually. We have the display flex property. Okay, and we have display give me a minute. Yeah, so we have display flex property, and we have display grid property. Okay, we'll study about both these properties in tomorrow's class because it's a little bit longer concept. If I start now, we won't be able to finish it on time. So for today's class, we studied a lot of things. You can practice doing this on your own a little bit. In tomorrow's class, we'll study a little bit about opacity, about the position property, the transition, and how to add animations and bring life to our website. We can also do that. And in tomorrow's class, we'll also try working on a project. Okay, we try building portfolio website from scratch and adding css and animations to it. Okay, and then if time allows, we'll learn about javascript a little bit, and then continue with the apis part and the backend. Okay, so if you guys have any doubts, everything is done from my side, you can ask. uh, Otherwise, in 5 to 10 minutes, we can end the session. You any doubts are welcome. You can ask in the chat box. Okay, if you guys don't have any doubts, I guess we can end the session. Thank you all for your time, and we'll meet tomorrow.